meditation and stuff like that. But you're big into yoga, aren't you? You're actually a yoga teacher, aren't you?
Yeah, yoga teacher, and been practicing yoga for the past 4 years now. Since 2016. So yeah, the past 4 years now, and just kind of gradually getting more into it each year, and as the days go by, you know what I mean, you're always kind of learning more and always delving deeper.
Yeah, no, that's class. The one thing I kind of always looked at the way I looked at yoga. Now I've never done it. I've always wanted to do it, but the way I looked at it kind of was it's meditation crossed with exercise in some way, but it's kind of exercising your mind in a sense. But what would be kind of your definition of yoga? Like, is it closer to meditation or a workout? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's hard to put one definition on it. Like, they're all aspects of the practice, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
So, we were talking a little bit about it earlier on. It was like there's kind of 8 limbs to yoga in total.
Right.
Now you can practice any one of the 8 limbs separately. So, a big one at the moment is the physical. So the physical practices that we do, the physical postures that we do, generally seeing like on Instagram, or, you know, if you go to a yoga class, these are the things that we're going to be doing. So yeah, there is that, and then there is the meditation side to it as well. So they'd be 2 kind of limbs.
Yeah.
So it would be both, but to put a clear definition on it, it's just it's an overall practice of, I suppose, life and self-study and self-development.
Yeah.
It's hard to just come in at it. It's hard to come in from one particular angle like that. But yeah, they'd both be a big part of the practice now.
Oh no, class. No, because I was as of lately, it's weird actually that you said that. It's called, is it the 8 limbs or 9 limbs? 8.
8 limbs.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that you brought that up, because I was actually only talking to one of the lads the other day about Muay Thai, because I used to do Muay Thai like in Dublin Thai boxing. I was in and out for the space of years, but I never stuck to it because the training was too hard for me, to be honest with you. But I still love it as a sport, like the Thai boxing. Like, but that's called in Thailand. That's called the art of the 8 limbs, like, because it's like fists, elbows, knees, kicks. So it's like 4 each side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they call it the art of the 8 limbs, which I think it's kind of interesting. It sounds quite similar to kind of the definition of yoga and self practice and stuff like that.
Interesting, yeah. Now the 8 limbs in yoga would be pretty similar. So the first 2 would be, say, yamas and niyamas, and they're basically, like, in short, you could talk for hours about them alone. Like, each separate subject, you could delve so deep into each kind of separate subject. But as an overview, the yamas and niyamas can be compared in a sense to the 10 commandments. You know what I mean? Live a good life, be a good person, like, not to steal, not to lie, not to harm anybody, be truthful, be content, be happy with the way things are, and, you know, basically just living a good lifestyle. And that automatically brings you into a better state of being. Do you know what I mean? If you're living by the first 2 limbs and you're being a good person, like, you're causing no harm. Do you know what I mean? You're obviously going to be in a good state of being from them 2 limbs alone.
Okay.
And then the 3rd limb that would come into it would be the asana, or the physical kind of practice that would be the most kind of known aspect of yoga, I suppose, because like, it's very gross, it's physical, it's easy to see. Yeah. And it's easy to just say, oh, that's yoga, that kind of way. But the deeper understanding of it, so that'd be the 3rd limb. And each kind of limb or each kind of stage leads you up for the next. So, like, if we practice our first 2 being a good person, and then we practice our asana or our physical practice, it just helps kind of set us up for the next stage. So it helps prepare us for the next stage. It helps kind of calm the body and maybe rid the body of some energy, or you know, stuff like that. So we don't need. And then the 4th limb would be our pranayama, or our breath work. 5th limb would be like practicing withdrawal of senses, or just being aware of the senses and kind of getting a better understanding of these.
Would that be like kind of like a much deeper mindfulness type of thing, or would that be different to kind of mindfulness and living in the now, sort of?
I suppose it would be, it would be kind of mindfulness as well. But I suppose, so it would be pratyahara is the kind of name given to withdrawal of senses. Okay. And it'd be more kind of learning how to somewhat control these senses. All right. So our senses are generally like built, they're made to go outward. Yeah. So, you know, our eyes are always looking out and bringing in information. Our ears are hearing sound and bringing in information. Our nose can smell, our tongue can taste, and our skin can feel. Yeah. So it's kind of practicing not letting these senses go out and pick up information that's going to distract us or kind of bring turbulence in.
Okay.
And instead of focusing these senses on going out, we try focus these senses to look internally instead of externally, if that makes sense.
No, that does make perfect sense, yeah.
So we begin to look internally, and then after this stage we practice our concentration, and with concentration it leads us into a meditation, and if enough time is spent in meditation, we'll reach this state of kind of samadhi, and that's the liberation state, kind of self-realization kind of state.
Okay, right. Kind of semi-psychedelic type of state, like.
Well, you could look at it that way as well. Yeah, you could look at it that way as well. But it's more just the ultimate truth, the self-realization, and kind of who we are and what's our purpose here. You know.
Yeah.
It's just very insightful. A very insightful kind of. I've never been there myself. Now. That's years of practice and stuff like that. But
you hear it kind of.
You hear it been said and
like,
described. It's just just really insightful kind of sensation, this feeling of ecstasy, this kind of blissful state, and where all the answers are kind of thing. Like
that's really interesting. It's crazy that like that feeling or that kind of state of consciousness, if you will, sort of. It's already in us, sort of. It's just kind of, you just have to practice it to access it, sort of, which is crazy. Like when you think of. Right, like you hear of these experiences, these kind of self-realization experience happening with like DMT or with like sometimes, but more rarely, acid or some sort of like psychedelic breakthrough experience. But that's, you're taking a substance for that to happen. But the fact that you can, with practice, just make your mind aware of what is you, what are we?
Tuning into the frequency, kind of. It's like the frequency is out there, but we kind of have to just tune into that frequency and be in a state or be in what would the word be, like merging with this frequency in a sense. That's what you kind of have to realize, this kind of frequency.
No, that's really fucking interesting. And it's like I've been using meditation for the past month or two for anxiety and basically for the panic attacks and stuff like that, and it definitely has helped, more so in the way in very kind of practical ways, like the kind of belly breathing and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like that's helped when I've been in situations of panic. But all in all, it definitely has 100% helped a lot, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but, big time.
I think it's more so just like focusing yourself, like living in the now and not thinking of kind of a load of what ifs and stuff, do you know what I mean? I think that's what helps, do you know what I mean, when you're able to get yourself centered like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it just helps slow everything down, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, the meditation, so it starts with concentration, like, you know, because it's always a hard thing to explain, this meditation, like, and I used to have a lot of trouble with it myself. Like, I used to be sitting there thinking, what am I doing? I used to be sitting there kind of planning out my day sort of thing, or like, what is meditation? I was kind of saying. So the meditation is the state we achieve through our concentration.
Yeah.
And our concentration like that is ideally on a single point. Sorry, I'm going all.
No worries.
On a single point of focus. So like that, when we meditate, it helps us focus on a single point, and it helps everything slow down. So like, normally our mind is just looking for distraction after distraction and bringing in information, thought, and it's just weighing up options, and it's so fast, like, do you know what I mean? And it's hard to catch sometimes, and it can really run away with itself. So just taking the time to sit down and focus on a particular thing will help bring more attention to what we try to focus on, and help everything else just kind of slow down automatically, but also help us bring awareness to this is what's happening, like, and the separation between ourselves and our thoughts, like, you know, the kind of way we kind of merge with we kind of tend to merge with our mind and and kind of correspond, and we kind of think of our mind and our thoughts as reality in a sense. So like you said, when you meditate, it really helps you slow these down, but also bring awareness to the separation of yourself and what's it, like, yourself and the thoughts, and the watched and the watcher kind of relationship, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's it's just crazy though. I do find it literally quite mind blowing, like the fact that you can, as I said, like, what was I going to say, from your perspective, what would be a good kind of starting point for someone who wanted to get into kind of inner self, kind of like not so much just like meditation, because a lot of people, like, they don't, like, including myself, I don't fully at all like understand meditation in itself. I just know that it's incredibly relaxing. That's all I know. I just know that it allows me to kind of go into a little bit of a dream state during the day. It's like having a waking nap, in my opinion. It's like you do feel kind of rejuvenated after it. But for someone who's kind of from a perspective of suffering, say if someone suffer with like daily stress or daily anxiety and stuff like that, where would be a good starting point for them, do you think?
Well, any aspect would really be a good starting point. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
A good starting point. You could come in from any kind of angle and benefit. So
Yeah.
for somebody, maybe like if it was related to anxiety, maybe kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd recommend some of the physical work first.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
you know what I mean? Because from my own experience, like when I am a little bit hyped up or a little bit energetic or excited or anxious myself, I find it hard to just kind of sit down straight away.
Yeah.
And even try to meditate.
Yeah.
So if I try to meditate, but I have this like built up energy
You need to do
source,
something with it, like,
I need to do something with that first. So that's kind of the whole point of the steps and the hierarchy and the 8 limbs of yoga. So each step kind of, like, you can practice any one on its own.
Yeah.
You still can, but you benefit more if you prepare.
Yeah.
So limb 1 and 2, like as we were talking about, was you know, living a good life, being a good person, not lying, not harming anybody.
Yeah.
And being content, happy or sad, no matter what the kind of situation. And there's so much more involved in the first 2 limbs. But if you live like that, it brings you into a better state of being.
Yeah, and I just, sorry to cut across you, but I've been reading a book recently, and what you were saying the first 2 sound a lot like the book that I'm reading. It's called the 4 Agreements. The book that I'm reading at the moment.
I heard about it actually.
It's what is it? It's like I think it's be completely, what's the word? It's be impeccable with your word. Like, saying your word is a spell. Like, your word can harm someone if you use it against them. Your word can boost yourself up. It's be impeccable with your word, and it's kind of like the way you were saying, being content whether the situation is happy or sad. Don't take anything personally. That's another one of the things. It's like anything that happens is not a reflection on you at all. If someone says that you're ugly, that's a reflection on their inner attitude towards
100%,
you. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not because they think you're ugly. It's because their inside is ugly, and it's projecting out onto you and then back to them virtually. But and then there's another few things, and sort of like with the word, like be impeccable with your word. I didn't know, but impeccable means without sin, and it comes from like Latin or something like that. But one of the old languages, I don't know, Latin or Greek, one of the fucking, they speak it in fucking Spartan movies. That's all I cared about. But so it's sort of like if you're going into a class with a new lecturer, the example they gave is, and someone says to you before you go in, oh, that lecturer he's shy and he's a pervert, by the way, just letting you know. Yeah. When you go into that classroom, if you allow their word into your life, you're not seeing the lecturer through your eyes, you're seeing it through the person's eyes who just walked outside the room. And then you're kind of already biased, and you're looking for, yeah, this fella is a pervert, or this fella is a bad teacher, you know what I mean? And then before you know it, then you say it to somebody else in the class, and then it spreads. And it's like, gossip is the worst thing that has ever.
100%. The chain reaction then, and it changes from person to person.
Yeah, and it accumulates as well. You know what I mean? It does definitely accumulate, and I think that's one thing my dad always told me when I was younger. If like, because we used to live in America, I was born over there, and he used to tell me, like, when he was working on a site, if someone said, "Oh, that fella's on today, he's a fucking wanker," he'd always say, well, I'm going to talk to him, and if I think he's a wanker, but until then, I don't know the guy.
Don't let anybody else,
Don't pick up on other people's opinions. And I think, and another thing as well I wanted to ask you, does the 8 limbs, does that tie into Buddhism at all? Or is it like, because you said it was like the Ten Commandments,
well, not really, no, I wouldn't tie into Buddhism is a kind of separate, similar kind of approach, I suppose, to the same overall goal. Yeah. A lot of them probably would be used in Buddhism, but in different terms. Yeah. Like a lot, if you find even with all the religions, like everything's slightly different, but the core meaning of everything is generally the kind of big, the same. Like, do you know what I mean? So I suppose it would correlate a little bit with Buddhism, but it wouldn't be directly linked. Okay. As far as I know. Yeah. And anyways, like I never heard it. but I'm sure they kind of use, different words, same meaning.
Yeah,
if that answers the question. Yeah.
And what about then when you move on to, so steps 1 and 2 was sort of like, as you said, the
So that as well, and non-judgment actually comes into it as well. So
right.
we're just talking about so non-judgment would come into it, and then truthfulness as well. Truthfulness, telling things exactly as they are. Unless you don't, so there's always a thing between truthfulness and non-harming. So like, you don't speak the truth if it's going to harm somebody. Do you know, that kind of way. So there's you trip over a lot, and you kind of question it a lot, and then when you start to practice, there's a lot of kind of little tests that come up, but they're fun. Like, do you know what I mean? You go through these kind of.
It sort of reminds me as well when you said like the truthfulness. There was always like, and I've met so many of these people, and it's like, I can just see it in the reflection, so it's not delayed. I've met so many of these people as well, and they actually thrive off being I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but you look really fat and that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they kind of thrive off I'm just being honest. Like, do you know what I mean? So sometimes saying that you're honest, like as you said, like as long as it doesn't bring harm, doesn't really give you an excuse to be a cunt sometimes. Like when people
it's like, a tricky one. It is a tricky one. There's a fine line though. There is a fine line.
Like if
there's a better way to say that same thing. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
100%. Like, oh, do you want to go for a jog later? That
exactly.
Could be
there you go.
That could be the thing. Like, because you're trying to, like, again, there's a big difference between constructive criticism and kind of just straight up kind of degrading someone. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So, like, if someone commented on one of my videos and said, there's a shadow in the background or something, and I'd just be like, I know, we're trying out new lighting, that's fine. But if someone was just like, this is a fucking shite podcast, I'm like, that's not constructive criticism.
No, keep it.
Exactly.
There's a fine line.
But would the no judgment, would that fall under steps 1 and 2 or step 3?
No, that's in the first 2. So that's so non-judgment would be like not judging anybody, but more so and more importantly, probably not judging yourself. So like not having these big expectations of yourselves. And again, it would tie into contentment as well. So being contentment, it's like we said, like we were talking about earlier, but more so as well. Like, you probably heard the phrase, never let a win get to your head or a loss get to your heart. So if you win or lose, like, you should be stable. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't really soak up the win and boast the win too much. But also, if you lose, you shouldn't really let that get to you too much.
It's crazy how similar what you were saying sounds like the first part of the book. Like, it's a lot.
It would be. I think Stoicism. It's quite like Stoicism in the kind of, if you study Stoic or anything like
that's
that.
That's what it is. It's a Stoic.
It's a Stoic. Well, there you go. So it's pretty much the same idea, the same concept there.
I've only read it literally 10 pages or something, like, but what you're saying has definitely resonated in the first 10 pages.
It clicks in, same
Yeah.
different words, same meaning.
Yeah,
You know what I
same
mean? So
again,
a lot
yeah.
of words will have,
Yeah.
like a lot of this will be mentioned in different ways. Other words, even
Yeah.
on memes that you see, and they
Yeah.
kind of relate to it relates to anything. It's a
Yeah.
lifestyle, like it's a lifestyle more
Yeah.
so than anything else.
Yeah.
But with that contentment as well comes a certain kind of detachment, you know, that kind of way.
Okay.
So
Done our first take, and we went grand after
just,
the test.
just
So
flows.
so that was grand, and now this is our one fuck up. But sure, look, we'll be contempt about it.
There you go. Yeah, 100%.
We won't take it to heart.
Calm and steady, in the moment, in the flow.
Exactly. It's
letting
not,
it roll.
It's
yeah.
not personal. The computer doesn't have anything against us personally. It's a reflection on his inner self. But So as you were saying about the first 2 kind of being a kind of like.
So the first 2 are guidance, so you can, in a sense, you can compare them to like the 10 commandments, but as we were saying, the first 2 limbs are just kind of positive duties and observations. Just be sound. Do you know what I mean? Just be sound. Don't do any harm. Be a good person. Do what you think is morally right, and by practicing these 2 limbs, you'll automatically come into a better state of being. Do you know what I mean? You'll be happier. You'll be more at peace with yourself, and so that them 2 limbs are a very big and great practice in themselves, almost.
Right.
Like,
And I was kind of, does that kind of tie into as well? Because I know this thing in itself is kind of like, or you see this symbol, this yin and yang symbol a lot, I don't know if that even represents karma, but karma in itself, would that tie in, like, as you said, if you be a good person, you'll have a good life, sort of, you'll be in a better sense of being. Like, does that kind of tie into that in any way? Like, you get the energy that you give out, sort of.
Well, it does a little bit, Well, so karma, I suppose it would, because like everything we do is karma. Do you know what I mean? Every single action we do with attachment is karma. and we know every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah,
So that's what karma is basically. But karma is a really big topic in kind of the Hindu practice and the Hindu beliefs. Which is what yoga is kind of based around, to be honest. Like,
all right.
So it's like the law of karma, the law of moksha, and the law of reincarnation is the kind of three big laws that they kind of build around. But no, I suppose the first two limbs is just to get you into a better state of being. Karma is a different subject, but I suppose it would tie in in a sense, because everything we do, every action, every thought, every speech is kind of karma. So I suppose it would tie in, like, because if we're following them, we're gonna have good karma.
No, that makes sense. And then what kind of would you get onto then with steps 3 and steps 4? What would they entail then?
Step 3. So step 3, our limb 3 is asana, is our physical practice.
Okay.
So that's what you see in the gyms and on Instagram pages and stuff like that. So there's not really some rule for the asanas. The only big rule that people say is that it should be calm, it should be steady, it should be sustainable. Do you know what I mean? So whatever that means to the individual. It doesn't have to be a big headstand or a handstand or a big back bend, or you don't have to twist like a pretzel. Do you know, to be able to go to yogi. Like the only thing I remember really being in stone or in writing is that it should be stable and comfortable. Okay. But we practice the asana, which is our third limb. It's our physical practice. And it kind of builds us up stage to stage. So I know for myself, quite often I'm not somebody that can just sit down and meditate. Like, you know, I can't just sit down and concentrate. And if I do so and I have all this built up energy when I try to do so, it's just like I'm sitting there and I'm unsettled and I kind of want to be moving. I'm looking around, I'm easily distracted, my mind is turbulent, and I kind of just sit there saying, right, well, I'm sitting here, what am I doing? And all these thoughts are coming in, I'm planning out my day, and I'm just not really in it. So when I practice the asana, the physical practice, limb 3, it just kind of builds me up to be in a better state for the limbs to follow. Right. So that's the kind of hierarchy of yoga.
Yeah, and just one thing as well, it just kind of interests me, it just popped into my head there. You were saying that you have all this energy and stuff, and like you can't necessarily meditate unless you kind of do something with the energy first. I think it interests me because I was talking when I was on when the Apex lads were on, I was talking about there's a law, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's one of Newton's laws. I know it's a law of science anyway, that energy can't be created or destroyed, it can only be redistributed. So for example, you can't make electricity, you have to make static energy, or you have to make, fire is made from friction, heat is made from friction, and you can't, if you have energy, you can create energy, or you can't destroy it. Like, do you know what I mean? That's why it's often,
it just changes form.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, different words saying meaning. But the thing about it is like the argument I use it for is the fact that the thought of this afterlife or some sort, because the thought, nothing scares me, and I'm sure a lot of people, more than the thought of it being just endless blackness when you die. Now I'm going to stay off death on this episode because I always fucking veer into it. It's a big part of life. It is.
We have to understand it. We have to have some sort of understanding, and you have to have some sort of understanding and lack of fear of. Do you know what I mean? You can't be afraid of it. So it's a big topic we have to talk about, I suppose.
I was watching a film there a couple of days ago called It's Such a Beautiful Day, and I'm not sure the creator's name, but I know he's won awards for it. It's basically just about this stick man called Bill who's going through his days, and he's dealing with losing his psyche, like he's losing his mind. And it's kind of like the movie starts off when it's just like black and white, he's a stick man walking, and by the end of it then it's the whole world is getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And there's a scene in the middle of it which I really like, and I don't know if this is quoting it exactly, but virtually what it says is Bill grows old and he's feared death his whole life, he's never stopped thinking about death, and then he realizes as he's lying in this hospital bed looking surrounded by people he barely recognizes, how ironic it is to think to spend all your time in such a beautiful thing worrying about such a boring time at the end. You know what I mean? Such a pointless boring time at the end, and it's just like, it's just so anticlimactic, and it just doesn't even matter really, because it's like, why waste your time and energy in this beautiful thing which is existence, worrying about when it ends, because it's just, there's just no point. But then it kind of weirdly enough, not ironically, it kind of as a joke when the film ends, it just goes, it's just like, oh, you didn't kill him, did you? You can't kill him. And he's like, no, of course I didn't kill him, kind of taking the piss out of Hollywood for always keeping the main guy alive.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, no, of course I didn't kill him. He's like, Bill went on for hundreds of years exploring the world, learning everything there is to know, and then he outlived every human died. He fell in love a million times, and then the earth was destroyed, and he was flying through space until all the stars died and went out. And it was like, well, in the end, he was, even if you didn't die and you live forever, you're still going to be alone in the dark anyway eventually. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's better to I can't word it without sounding suicidal. It's better to die than that kind of thing. You know what I mean? No one ever thinks of, well, if you live forever, you'd have to watch everyone you love anyway go down. Die. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting. And now we kind of veered off, but I just think it is interesting that kind of in daily things, like you were saying about the, like, your energy and stuff. But I can't do that because I can't concentrate or whatever. And it's just like, we all practice these laws and we all practice these arts without even knowing, you know what I mean? Like
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's that's why it's more of a lifestyle. Like when you practice yoga, like I feel deeply, it's more of a lifestyle than it is like anything else, you know, that kind of way. So like, it's not just something you show up and do for an hour on your mat and you completely forget about it then. Well, it can be, like, you know, it can be that small thing if somebody wants it to be just that small thing, or it can be this really big thing as well.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean? So
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it can definitely be a lifestyle practice as well.
Yeah.
Limb 3 is your physical practice, it's your asanas. So yeah, that helps kind of prepare the body to be more stable and calm for the next stage, which would be your pranayama.
All right.
Which would be basically breath control, breath exercise, breath work.
Right, yeah. Like the diaphragm breathing type breaths and stuff like that?
Yeah, so generally, so 3-part breathing. So like we were talking about earlier on, where you were saying you had this short kind of breath, and this short breath brought on feelings of anxiety, which it would, because you're like panicking in a panic state.
Yeah.
And I think that just happens to a lot of people these days as well. They end up only using, say, 1/3 of their breathing capacity, or 1/3 of their actual breath, like, you know, that kind of way, and you're just breathing into your chest in this short breath all the time, and that happens. So
and it's crazy when you actually slow it down and realize like how much you can fucking breathe. Like when you actually,
100%.
It's crazy how deep you can actually fill your lungs, and then how much you can empty them out as well. Do you know what I mean?
And just bringing awareness to this as well, and it's kind of bringing in new life force and expelling the old life force, and it's bringing in new energy and expelling the old energy, and it's purifying our system, like the better energy and the better airflow that we have. And
that's sick.
The breathing, and there's lots of breathing techniques or breathing practices that people do, but generally it'd be the 3-part breathing that you'd start with. So that would be to refrain from this short panicky breath and to use the full capacity of your breath. And like you said, when you do that, you're less panicky, you're slowing everything down, you're expelling all the old stagnant energy, but also it brings your kind of mind and your function into this single point as well. So it's limiting any distractions. And so a big part of kind of a guided meditation, to say, would start with pranayama. So you might, like, you wouldn't get all these steps in the kind of 1 hour class, you know, that kind of way.
I was gonna ask that actually.
It'd be tough too, and like you could do it, but generally no, you just do maybe 1 or 2 and kind of in a class. But yeah, so you practice your breathing. So the 3-part breathing would be a big one to kind of start off with. You could try just kind of counted breaths. You could try, with practice, like a little bit of retention, but the retention can actually build up anxiety as well if we're not ready and we're not kind of prepared to it. So that would be kind of further down the line.
Is that kind of meditating, like holding your breath type of thing, or?
Oh, a little bit. It could be like a 4-second inhale, maybe like a brief 2-second pause before your 4-second exhale, and then you pause at the bottom again.
That's actually what I do, yeah.
You do that one as well,
Because, well, it depends. If I'm getting palpitations, if my heart's racing, I tend not to, because when I'm holding my breath, I can feel the heart. It builds up, but when I'm in a relatively relaxed state, I actually enjoy doing that. And usually, for some reason, I don't know why, usually I do 4 in, hold for 2, and then 6 out for some reason. But I heard doing the same in and same out is better. I don't know why.
Well, no, I think you generally build up. It's a big thing. Like you take in less and you give out more. Do you know that kind of way? So you take in less and you give out more. you'd build up to that. Now, I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner or anybody, because it can be quite anxiety inducing at the same time. If you practice the wrong kind of breathing technique with the wrong kind of person that's not in that kind of mind frame, or that's in a different kind of mind frame, or that needs something else. So there is kind of different ones that you practice with different people at different times, you know, that kind of way. So
I done one of the Wim Hof breathing techniques before I even began meditating. Have you heard of Wim Hof?
I've heard. I've never practiced too much now. I'd rather do it in person with him, like, you know, that kind of way.
His breathing techniques are different to what I do. We kind of like kind of like a chant sort of. Almost.
I've seen.
I was doing one of his breathing techniques before I ever meditated or anything. I was like, oh yeah, this is the fellow who jumps in ice baths. Grand, I'll try. I'll do that. And I nearly blacked out. I got so dizzy because my body wasn't used to that breathing.
Not used to it now. Because you let out more than you take in on that one as well, don't you? And it's constant. Your lungs aren't really built up for that. Your head probably just goes.
Overload of oxygen straight to the head. You know what I mean? But we can get now on air. But it's kind of that does happen to me sometimes as well when I start meditating at the beginning. First minute or so, I'll feel a little bit kind of wobbly, like when a little bit floaty sort of when I'm first starting it. But then once I level out, then it's sort of one thing that kind of interests me a lot is like, and I was talking to me therapist about this when I was the guy I do the CBT with. He was saying that I was saying to him, when I meditate or when I like practice mindfulness and when I enter that like completely relaxed state, I almost get the same numbness in my arms as I would when I'm having a panic attack. But considering it's over time, it's like what's the word? It's like
it's not like pins and needles, kind of.
A little bit, but it's like satisfying. Do you know what I mean? The feeling of like it's kind of pleasurable. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
fucking pleasurable. But it's pleasurable rather than scary. Like when I have a panic attack, if like when the feeling of panic sets on, and like you'll get an initial shock, your arms will feel they're going numb. Turns out that's because the heart takes blood away from your arms to put in your vital organs, because it thinks your organs are in danger if you panic. So it takes blood out of places it thinks you don't need it. That's why people's hands tingle and arms tingle when they're panicking, and faces, because the blood all draws
it's blood flow and
and then if it's in your head, your blood pressure will drop a little bit when you're having a panic attack. That's why people get dizzy, or people are breathing very fast. The oxygenating blood isn't getting up quick enough, you get even dizzier. But when you're fearing of I'm gonna have a heart attack while you're dizzy, your heart's palpitating, you're like, this is a fucking heart attack. You know what I mean? So but that's what I was saying. It's kind of it's like that. Like I do get like numbness after a while. It's like it's almost like I can't feel my hands, sort of, but in a nice way. Do you know what I mean? And then when I come out of the meditative state,
almost like withdrawal of senses.
Literally, But same word. That's going to be our big catchphrase now for our
same word. That's the name of this podcast now. Same word, different meaning.
That's it. But but it is that, and it's sort of like that kind of floaty feeling. But then when I come out of the meditation, and then I crack everything, and I'm like, it feels as though I got a deep tissue massage. Like, it's crazy. Do you know what I mean?
And you let go of the stress you're holding on to, the tension that you're holding on to. You forget about it for a minute.
Big time. 100%. And I think it's crazy that I was listening to a guided meditation on YouTube. They're the only ones I can really do. I find if I put on music and try and meditate myself, I'm not strong enough to do that yet. You know what I mean? I have to have someone telling me, like, I'll do a countdown with me or something, or telling me how to breathe, stuff like that. But I was watching one on YouTube, and it was like, it's crazy how we can, like, as people, we can actually, like, even if, like, and if anyone's listening, watching this at home, it's kind of like one of the, I think I talked about the big toe experiment on here before. It's sort of like people who suffer from anxiety say, my trigger was my heart. I always thought I'm going to have a heart attack. So I'd always feel tightness in my chest all day, even though I'd gotten multiple ECGs and heart scans and stuff to say that my heart was healthy. I'd still feel tension in my heart. So my therapist told me about an experiment called the big toe experiment. And basically, it's like, while you're sitting there, if you think in your head, there's something wrong with my right big toe, there is actually something wrong with it. Over and over again, just keep concentrating all your thoughts on your right big toe.
Mind-muscle connection, isn't it?
It will start to feel weird and kind of like tense and strange. Same way, like when you're having a meditation and they're doing a meditation, and they're talking to you about that wave of relaxation, and they're like, feel it go over your legs. You actually feel your legs, like you feel a wave moving around your legs, and it's like, it's crazy that you can actually like with your brain make your legs warmer or colder. Like,
big
you know
time.
What I mean? And it's mad. Like,
you should try a yoga nidra practice online. There's one or two good ones that I can send you, or maybe you can link in your videos. But
definitely.
That's actually kind of, it's like a guided meditation in a sense, but you have to stay awake and you have to stay focused, and you have to listen to instruction.
Okay.
But generally you'd lie down and you'd be kind of talked through a visualization process
Right.
type thing, and you'd be relaxed and brought into the moment. But they always go through all the body parts like that.
Okay.
So it's bringing awareness to every single one of your fingers, every single
Yeah.
one of your limbs, muscles, areas of the body and
Yeah.
stuff. And then you do get this feeling of like, levitation, floatiness, kind of. So a yoga nidra is it's not what you're describing, but you can kind of get the benefits of what you're describing from yoga nidra. So
Okay.
if that's one of the areas of interest for yourself,
Yeah.
maybe look into a yoga nidra practice.
Definitely, yeah.
After your next meditation or so.
Yeah.
And it'll bring you more into detail, everything through every kind of feeling, every part of the body, and you just bring your awareness to these parts.
Right, yeah. And
It's a big thing. I used to say to me, so I used to do the PT and gym instruction and stuff like that. I still do a little bit, but
yeah.
it's the mind-muscle connection as well. So like you were saying, think about your big toe and you'll feel your big toe.
Yeah.
So if my client was ever training, say, bench press, I'd be saying, right now, think of your chest and triceps here. And you're bringing that focus and awareness to your chest and triceps. You can activate and get more out of it.
Right, yeah.
Same with your back and biceps on this move, or your complete legs on this move.
Yeah,
So a big believer in that mind muscle kind of connection as well. Yeah.
It's just crazy that we're like, and like it does really blow my mind that like we worry about all these fucking tiny things seemingly big at the time because it's all about perception and subjectivity and stuff. But it's crazy that like we worried about these things around the presidential election and the coronavirus, but like we're just like fucking amazing things as species, like, do you know what I mean? It's if anything, we're over advanced, do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
Like it's crazy that like how, and like we're the only, well, it's arguable that elephants might be as well, but we're the only known living thing that's self-aware on the planet, do you know what I mean? Like we're the only thing that knows we're alive, do you know what I mean?
We have what was it? We have intelligence and the animals have instincts, isn't there?
That's basically like, and what the I think we were chatting about this before we start recording, but like the way I'm going back to believe me therapist again, but the way he told me was like, for example, there's 3 brains within one in our head basically, and there's the back brain, which is beside the cerebellum, or it is called the cerebellum. I'm not sure, I'm not big on the science of it, but there's that, and that has kind of automatic responses that you don't know, subconscious responses, blinking, breathing, stuff like that, stuff that you don't know, and fight or flight. And like kind of back when we were, is that slowly slipping off, or is it just me?
Hey,
back when we were
caught it in time anyway.
Back when we were, before we evolved into what we are, like when we were animals, and kind of lizards and stuff would just have this back brain that's kind of like just reaction,
Instinct,
just instinct. And then you have the middle brain, which is where what harbors emotion and what harbors, as far as I know, memories as well, I think is in the middle brain. And then so dogs, for example, would have the back brain and a little bit of the middle brain, and then what we have is the back brain, middle brain, and then frontal cortex or frontal lobe. That's where your personality is. That's where your rational thought is. That's where your logic is. It's not where your consciousness is, because I can't figure out where consciousness comes from, which is a sick fact, because that's like, right, Grant, there's an afterlife somewhere. Do you know what I mean? If they can't figure out where it's come from, I'm like, right, it can be removable. If it can be uploaded to somewhere, do you know what I mean? I'll be grand. But it's like, it's sort of like your front brain and back brain, they don't get along with each other. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like if you go into fight or flight, your front brain won't go, right, we're in fight or flight, let's go, let's all work together. Your front brain is a fucking a 24th century hipster who just goes, no, why are we going into this, you know what I mean? And then it questions it, and then you have the emotions in the middle thrown into it. So if anything, we are kind of overdeveloped, and when you take into account the things you're talking about and stuff with meditation and stuff, it is kind of as well connecting the tree and just kind of everything being in harmony, do you know what I mean? And which I think sounds like fucking should be something everyone's doing, really.
Well, 100%. I know we are making our way through the limbs, and we'll probably get there eventually. We were on breath work, and it all leads up to concentration and meditation. But but like you were saying there, it's very interesting. It's all the mind at the end of the day, though, isn't it? You have 3 parts of the brain, but it's all run by the mind at the end of the day. And a big part of the yoga practice as well, and with like, you know, if you spend enough time in meditation, like automatically you'll kind of insightfully, instinctively kind of like you kind of know through intuition, but it's more inner engineering. Do you know, that kind of way as well? So it helps you kind of understand these things. So like you were saying, what's consciousness? Do you know, that kind of way? So like it's a big thing in the yoga that there's that we have our minds. we have our intellect, we have our ego, and we have our consciousness as well. And it's like you were saying, in this subconsciousness, and then there was something you said there that just sparked our studies that I'm kind of currently going through at the moment. It's like through our consciousness we just react to certain situations. So it's so they say, let's say for example, our mind takes in the information, but that's all it really does. So our mind takes in the information and it gives it to intellect, say our intelligence kind of, and that's our decision making faculty. So our decision making faculty, our intellect kind of decides, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. This is how I'm going to like react, respond, or I'm going to take this, or I'm going to leave this. Or it basically discriminates and weighs up the options, and then gives the decision. So then the ego takes the decision to consciousness. I know it sounds crazy and everything, but during this process, your ego also identifies with that with that thing. So your ego is always wrongly, it's the wrong identification of yourself in one sense. And then the whole experience of this is given to your consciousness, or kind of stored in your consciousness, as a seed. So your consciousness remembers this experience. So it's like the next time it happens, the mind's going to take in the information
and link it.
The intellect's going to say, this happened before. The ego's going to go and get that seed, give that seed back to the intellect. Intellect's going to give it to the mind. Mind's going to order the motor organs to respond in a way according to that past seed. It's really interesting, and I know it's mind blowing, and I'm just kind of going like on a tangent here with all that kind of stuff.
That's what a podcast is, you know what I mean?
As well. Exactly. But it really teaches you to observe these inner instruments that we have, like our mind, our intellect, our consciousness, and our ego. And create a separation with them first of all, so we can observe them. So we're creating a separation ultimately between the watcher and what is watched. And getting a better understanding of it, and then getting a better kind of control over it, and then merging and becoming friends with it. So
is the watcher your higher self or your super ego?
Your higher self, your soul, like basically your soul, your true self. You know what I mean? So who you really are. So
and that can be clouded a lot of the times by like the likes of anxiety and stuff like that. It can
clouded or entangled mainly, just entangled with like the world, with material and
addiction and stuff like that.
Any kind of material pleasures that you can think of. And then the ego identifies with that. So your higher self would be kind of your soul in a sense. If they say your real self.
Soul and I look at soul and consciousness as really like the you.
And they are, and so and this is what, remember we were talking about that deep state of samadhi, the eighth limb.
We get to that in 3 weeks probably.
It could take years, like years upon years. Depending on your like dedication and seriousness of your practice and stuff like that. But we were talking about it as in this DMT kind of trippy kind of feeling, which it could be as well. Like who's to say DMT trippy kind of feelings aren't just kind of spiritual kind of insights, you know, that kind of way. So like it's easy to say, okay, we're a soul and we have a soul within us, and but to identify, so the state of samadhi is to see I'm not the mind, so that mind's not me. And then it's like going through layers. It's like, okay, I'm not the intellect, or I'm not the ego, and I'm not the consciousness. So after you kind of get past all these, you reunite in a sense with your true self. And that's what self-realization really is. So that's a big term kind of thrown around, like self-realization, kind of what is it? So finding yourself in the yoga world, that would be realizing your true form and your pure form. And
it's kind of scary.
It is. It's a big topic, you know. It's a big topic, and first time hearing it, it can be like, what? You know, but it's really interesting stuff, and I'm big into it, and I'm studying a lot of it, and it all makes sense to me, kind of. So like do with it what you will, but you know, that's kind of the background
we're
of
we're not exactly promoting the use of DMT here, but I mean, it's having
look, we'll give you but so I forget where I was going with that, but that's the whole inner engineering is learning to make your mind your friend instead of your enemy. So like the mind is always working, always
Yeah.
taking in and putting out, taking in,
Computer,
putting out,
really,
taking.
innit?
Yeah, it's a computer. Yeah, computer system
Yeah.
in a sense. Like
Bio computer.
it's an instrument that we have, but it's not who we are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
yeah,
often
yeah.
we can entangle with it
Okay.
and
Right.
kind of lose sight, and like you said, they cover ourselves from who we really are.
Yeah, it's crazy actually.
It's a big thing, but
Yeah.
it just kind of makes sense. You know what I mean to
definitely.
me, and
And it reminds me as well of one experience that I had about, when was it? How long ago was 2017? It's 2020 now. I don't even know what fucking year it is. Early 2017. I still remember. I went to Amsterdam, and this is when I was a completely different person. I was voice crack there. It's not a podcast about voice crack. I was that's grand. I completely different person. I was big into weed. I was just like a big. Going, fuck it, just go out and get garb. I didn't think about anything. Just living life.
we all came up the same way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was grand. I was 19 at the time, and I know I'm only 22 now, so I'm acting like back in my day. But I was, but I remember I was in Amsterdam, and I took this substance called LSA, right? And it's like comes from Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds and morning glory seeds, right? So it's a psychedelic, but it's virtually like LSA. It's LSD's cousin, basically.
Okay.
So I didn't want to take mushrooms when I went over there because actually when I went in 2016, I took mushrooms and I puked everywhere. Like, and there was a lot of tourists with their kids and all just watching me just spew black, and I just
You can get very nauseous. Yeah,
I look like a demon. So I remember I took this LSA stuff because he said, it's not as bad on the stomach, blah blah blah, which was complete bullshit because I looked it up after I took it. One of the signs that it's kicking in is intense vomiting for about 10 minutes. So I was like,
it's supposed to be really good. Yeah.
So I was like,
it's supposed to be like this detox of all the bad energy.
Yeah. That's what it was. A detox or something anyway.
It's
you know what I mean?
something coming out.
So I was in the toilet of my hotel because I thought these aren't kicking in. It's been 2 hours, and I was like violently spewing into the toilet. Like, and then I went up to the hotel room. Then it was actually me and my girlfriend. And she didn't take anything, obviously, but I say obviously, but if she just didn't take anything. But she, like, we went up and she was kind of my trip sitter or whatever, like watching over me.
Trips, yeah.
But I
like it.
Yeah,
You need one of those.
Yeah, big time. But I remember just sitting there, and I was pretty because I got the lowest dose, but I took like the whole thing. So
right, yeah.
Relatively okay, but don't worry, this story's going somewhere. I'm not just talking about the time I tripped in the room, but so I was lying on the bed, and at the time I suffered with a lot of anxiety, but never panic attacks, just kind of anxiety, ball in my chest. I suffered from mild depression. Nothing like last year. The end of last year was when I was the bottom of the barrel kind of thing, which is good because I know I was like, right, I've hit my low now. I know what that feels like. You know what I mean? I was like, it's only up from now. So, but at the time I was sitting on the bed and I was just kind of meditating in a way, but I didn't really know I was meditating. I was just kind of relaxing and concentrating on my hands and concentrating on little things and thinking, this is great. And I remember I sat up and I said to her, I was like, I just realised something. She was like, what? And I was like, there's 2 me's. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, there's 2 fucking me's. And I was like, one of them is the one that is anxious all the time and the one that's depressed about like stuff in the past and stuff. But then there's the me that the other one with the anxiety shuts up most of the time. But now I'm that other me, do you get me? And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, I'm like, there's another me who has none of that stuff, and right now I'm separated from that other me. I am the better me now at the moment. And she was just like, have you got split personality syndrome or something? And I was just like,
100%.
That was the first kind of inner realization I ever had. Do you know what I mean? And since then I've been very kind of interested in it because it was only tiny. It was only a kind of, there is another you there, but
it was just this insightful kind of,
I mean? And I'd never
realization
heard about it before,
of the aware,
before that I'd never heard about it before, and then it turns out it's a huge thing, like, you know what I mean? So that really fucking interested me, the fact that I had that kind of feeling of, well, there's a me who holds on to all this bad stuff that is conditioned by the environment around me, and then there's a me deeper in there, but I can't get to him because of the shit around, you know what I mean? So
there's layers. You have to go through the layers and the layers. That's what the practice is for, like, you know what I mean? So that's what each layer of the practice is kind of for, instead of just jumping into, like, you won't reach it overnight, you know what I mean? So you have to line everything up in such a way that you become in such a state of being, and you enter into this kind of frequency, and everything has to be lined up.
That's mad.
But no, definitely what you were saying. So I thought about that a lot as well, and it's like, if everyone just sits and shuts their eyes for a few minutes, and then you're like, well, bring awareness to your thoughts. It's okay. So my thoughts are happening, but also while my thoughts are happening, there's somebody watching the thoughts. Who's that guy? Do you know what I mean? So, and then you say, right, so I'm watching my thoughts, and I know I'm watching my thoughts, but
now I know I'm watching my thoughts.
Is there someone else that knows I'm watching these thoughts?
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and it's not a little bit scary, but it's quite like at the start you're like, yeah,
what the fuck's going on?
What's kind of going on?
Deeper.
Yeah. But if you sit with it for long enough, you get a better understanding of it, and then it's like creating that separation of. So even that alone gave me great freedom. It's like okay, so I can watch all this going on. So like if I can watch it going on, I can somewhat control it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and disconnect from it.
And disconnect for it if needed as well. And it's really, this isn't me. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's just bringing this separation and awareness to what's actually going on. So this is what inner engineering is, right? It's just this, and like seeing what's happening and understanding it. Yeah. And then working alongside it from there. Like,
yeah, that's fucking insane. Like, it's really is immensely interesting though to think about. You know what I mean?
This is it's like for me in any ways, it's like, why isn't this on the news? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why isn't this on RTE?
But and then it kind of feeds into the thing of like they don't want us to reach that kind of higher.
Well, that's what a lot of people would say.
They want us to be like, if we're robots, it works for the people who made us fat. It works for the food companies. It works for the phone tech companies. If we're robots plugging away, not knowing what we really are, it works out for them. Now, I'm not saying like we need to rise up as people and realize that we're superhumans. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I kind of, it does bring power to you. You know what I mean? Having control over your life like that, and having virtually control over. I like saying your universe, because I like to think there's like, people think, oh, there's alternate realities, but like there's 7 billion alternate realities on the planet, in my opinion, because your universe is entirely different to mine. Do you know what I mean? Like
100%,
it's completely different. But having control over your reality is a really fucking strong, empowering thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and if you're able to, it's just mad interesting. It's crazy. It really is. I'm definitely gonna. What's that thing you told me to look up? Yoga Nidra.
Yeah. Yoga Nidra. That'd be a good practice for what we are talking about the topic earlier on, just bringing awareness to your senses and your different body parts and stuff like that. Yeah, that'd be cool. It brings some of them even bring sounds into it as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be, I forget what we were talking about that brought us on to that, but
the numbness in my hands, I was saying.
Oh yeah.
But I was meant to ask you as well. Are you like, just because from what it sounds like to me now, if I'm full of shit here, just say, James, you're full of shit. You're talking bollocks. But I'm just wondering, because what sounds like a little bit. If you follow them steps, the eight limbs, if you follow the 8 limbs, and then the 8th is kind of like meeting your higher self in a sense, is like, I nearly sounded like Ali G. They're like, is you meditating? Is it with me, man's no what? Like, I nearly fucking done it again. But like, when you're following them steps, arguably, are you not sort of becoming your higher self throughout them steps? Do you know what I mean? Like,
realizing.
Yeah.
Realizing. Yeah, you're not gonna realize if you're if you're watching the news every second of the day, or if you're very big. Like you're realizing yourself through the 8 steps basically. Yeah.
Right, yeah. No, that's fucking mad. And then obviously step 8 would be that, but what's step 7?
7. So we have So 1 and 2 is leading a good life, being a good person, being sound. 3 is your physical practice. 4 is your breath work. 5 is your withdrawal of senses. We haven't really got to that one yet, but the pratyahara is what it's called, and your withdrawal of senses. So it's like bringing awareness to your senses first of all. Yeah. Noticing that your senses are built to go outwards. So like your eyes see outside and your ears hear outside. Your smells, touch and taste from outside mainly. Yeah. And it's a practice of kind of controlling these, so you're not as distracted by the external world anymore, or anything that happens outside so much anymore, and you can focus these senses inside and internally. Right. Yeah. So you start to kind of look within more. Yeah. And that comes with concentration, and that's the next step. But concentration and withdraw the senses kind of go hand in hand. So to withdraw our senses, we need to concentrate, and to concentrate, we need to withdraw our senses, so we're not distracted. Yeah. So each state kind of leads us into the next from here. Right. So if we practice this withdrawal of senses, we can look inward and not be distracted by outward, basically. Right. So like, if I see like, you know, a flash in the corner of my eye. I'm not thinking, I wonder what that was.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder what caused that. I wonder where it came from. Where
Yeah.
did it go? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that gonna come get me?
Yeah,
You know, or if I hear something, it's like I'm not trying to put a meaning into it, or like, you know all these kind of stuff.
100%.
So that helps. So then you're in the seventh state now, which is basically concentration.
Okay.
Deep concentration, ultimately on a singular point of focus.
Right.
So by focusing on this singular point of focus,
Yeah.
now we may get distracted, but the idea is to not judge our thoughts, our distractions that come in at this stage.
Yeah.
To cut them completely, stop them wherever we notice them, and to bring our focus back to this singular point of focus.
Okay.
And only with this concentration, that leads us into the meditative state then, or to meditation.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like this flow state where we're completely consumed by this one thing that we're kind of...
The anchor.
The anchor bait, kind of, yeah. So a lot of yogis would say, like, use a light, picture a light in a certain part of the body. And then with the concentration, we merge into this light, and that's like our meditative state in a sense.
Okay, right.
And this can be like a feeling, like you said it yourself, you probably had these feelings after meditation of just waking up again, and are you open your eyes and you're like, what's after happened in the last 5 minutes? You know,
Yeah.
you're completely, there's no time, there's no like distractions, there's no thoughts, there's no turbulence, there's you're just in a state of kind of, not a state of bliss, but a state of not nothingness either, but you know, you're just in a higher kind of state, and you know, you can kind of begin to see separations of thoughts, actions, you know, yourself, this self, and that's where that's where the fun begins. You know what I mean? And then with enough time in the meditation state, so like the concentration leads us into meditation, with enough time in the meditation state, you can enter the state of samadhi, and that has layers upon layers in itself as well.
I can imagine.
The state of samadhi would be the state of true liberation and self-realization.
Okay, yeah. It's very enticing, like, you know.
It is. It's very enticing, and it's a hard thing to talk about as well, because it's so like each one of these things that I'm kind of brushing over, like I'm kind of tripping over them, saying I should explain that more, but like I could explain each one of the you could talk, not that I can explain, but you can have a conversation about each one of the topics for an hour or two by themselves, you know, that kind of way. So it's a hard thing to talk about and pinpoint one kind of thing. It's a whole, at the end of the day, it's a whole kind of practice. It's a whole lifestyle, a whole tree, a whole practice. Yeah, it has branches, it has alleys, it has different pockets here and there. Do you know what I mean?
It was a climb. Oh, that's it. The tree of mental health that I was talking about kind of ties in a little bit to, like, the tree of meditation, in a sense, or any subject really. It's kind of like you have the main base, which is kind of the similarities between everything, but then you've got branches, which is the difference, kind of like, supposing generalized anxiety disorder, depression, the completely two different branches. But then on each of the branches, then you've got buds of, like, say on generalized anxiety disorder, you've got panic attacks, you've got everything like that, and then on the depression, you've got other, like, everything has a meaning and a kind of cause and a sub cause and different symptoms to everything, but all in all, they're still connected to the mental health. And then below the tree, then you've got the roots of the stuff that is going on, but you can't see. You know, that's where you
need to get.
Yeah, exactly. You need to dig under there. So that's the stuff that is going on. The causes, your trauma that you can't even remember. A good one that I always talk about is, like, if your tree and Jaws is on the telly, of someone getting ripped apart by a shark, you could forget about that thing, but then if you see a shark a few years later and you get terrified, it kind of ties into what you were saying about the inner engineering. Like, your brain, you might not even know it, but your brain links to, oh no, we were scared of that before, so get scared again.
There's a seed from it.
And it's just it's kind of like, it's I find it really interesting, and it kind of it's very similar with the meditation. Like, you've got mindfulness and you've got the other steps and stuff like that. You've got breath control and retention, or the thing with the senses, but then underneath it all, then you've got the things that are going on that you can't see and that you can't be aware of, but you're trying to get aware of them.
You're going gross from gross to subtler almost.
Yeah.
So you have to go gross to subtler, and then you learn skills, I suppose, or you build more awareness, or you just become into a better state to realize these subtler things. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you see more, you explore more internally.
Yeah, and it's one of the only things as well I find that kind of well I say meditation, but I mean like kind of self-awareness in a sense is one of the only things that I know I touched on this, I said this already, but that it's not, you don't only do it when you're interested in it. Like we're all, it's how we live, it's the lifeline of humanity sort of. It's already happening. It's just when you look into it, it's kind of like it only becomes real then, in a sense. It's like it's not like, supposing if you're really good at football, you won't know until you play football. But football will never matter in your life if you don't use it as a hobby. That's fine, you'll still continue. But if you never look into meditation, you never look into kind of mindfulness and stuff, regardless of that or not, it's still going on in the background. Like,
on some level. It's just a deeper level, a deeper understanding, and it's like you said earlier. I liked what you said earlier about there's like there's layers. Do you know what I mean? So there's layers to everybody. So like if you're not aware of it, like you're on the outside layer, and then when you're a bit more aware, you come onto the inside, and you eventually get down to the center. which
is kind of like you're following the steps as well, though.
In a sense.
It all kind of ties into that. No, but there's definitely. Well, 100% be follow-up episodes anyway of this,
because it's very broad, and there's a lot of tangents, and as we said, we had nothing planned. We're just kind of going with the flow and letting it all come. So, and
it worked perfectly, in my opinion. So and I learned a lot. I didn't think I'd learn as much as I did. I thought it was one of them things where it was kind of like, because I tried to look into it before, and I kind of, all I got was like, I just tried to look into the mindfulness for anxiety, and I thought it was just going to be like, deeper understanding, and then I only heard of kind of the mindfulness part and the breakthrough psychedelic part. I learned a lot today about the kind of like the nitty gritty, like in between parts, which we can, as you said in other episodes, we can delve into deeper and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely. And we could always do a fucking guided meditation one of the times as well. And
I had that in mind. I had that in mind. Definitely.
I'd definitely be into doing that, because, and then people at home could listen, because I know that. I know a lot of people at home watch. So I gained a couple of subscribers from my "Listen to This If You're Having a Panic Attack" video, which is sort of a guided mindfulness. It's not necessarily a guide it's a guide to stop a panic attack, which is basically allowing it to happen. That's the guide to stop a panic attack. It's not, because people say, when you start to panic, think of 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can smell, 5 things you can touch. That's the worst thing you can do. I don't know who came up with that. It works for some people, but that's a distraction mechanism. So
it's adding more. I don't know. I've never tried it myself, but it just seems like it gives you more.
Like freaking you out. But that's the thing, though. That's what it's a distraction thing. So you're trying to distract yourself from what's going on inside, but when you allow the panic,
you're not actually getting to the root there.
Exactly. So if you allow the panic to flow through you and say, okay, then grand, and acknowledge it for what it is, which is panic, then you say, well, okay then, and then your brain is like, wait, hold on, no, we're meant to be in danger now, and you're just like, no, I'm not. This is panic, and I know what you are. I know that this can't hurt me. Go ahead, make me heartbeat out of my chest if you want to make me shake. I'll let you. Then your brain gets confused, and it's like, oh no, wait, we're not in danger. What am I talking about? And it goes away like that. Like, do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
And not only that, but you sow a new seed for the next time. So next time your consciousness doesn't go back to that first fearful seed, it goes to the second strengthful seed that you're after planting. So it starts with awareness, like you said just there. Being aware of the triggers, being aware of what's actually happening, observing what's actually happening, creating a new. I always say response. Then you're able to create a response next time, rather than a reaction. So you're not just automatically reaction due to past experience. You're creating a response due to awareness of the present moment, and it's
it's crazy how you link that there with the seed thing. That's really that's spot on. It's sort of like as well with me. I was talking about with the therapist as well, that like I used to get a lot of panic attacks in the car. And he used to say, well, go out in the car as much as you can, because exposure therapy is one of the best, definitely one of the best things I've used for my disorder or for the panic attacks and stuff. Exposure therapy, because then, and he didn't explain it in the planting a seed way, but it is the same way. He's like, when you go out in the car, he goes, in your head, the next time you get in the car, you're going to be expecting an attack, because the last time you got in the car, you had an attack. But he goes, all it'll take is 1 or 2 times in the car without an attack to realise, wait, now I'm stronger. And then that seed goes away, sort of, and a new seed is planted of this is fine. And
different words say, mate.
I'm flat out with that army today, Jesus Christ. But it's just going to be literally called that now.
Different words say, man, it has to be done. You have to put that in there.
100%. But Yeah, no, and it's been great having you on. Honestly, one of the most interesting episodes I found because like it was an informative one. It wasn't just us chatting about a topic. Like it was an actual informative
A
one.
bit of yeah.
And an insight to it as well, because I'm sure a lot of people listen. Is if I can imagine if someone had a joint before watching all of this, they'd be fucking
It's podcast talk.
yeah, they'd be drawing the grids around their walls, thinking, "Where's the simulation?"
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, no, it's I can imagine everyone definitely enjoyed. I'll leave Jamie's Instagram. It's at yoga_ with Jamie, is it? Or?
It's just yoga with Jamie. Yeah, yoga with Jamie, and yeah, you can pop on, ask us any questions about the podcast or anything like that. But we should do a follow up and maybe look at a single topic more in detail or something like that.
Definitely, yeah.
It was hard and it was a lot of an overview, and don't get scared or put off, like, you know, by anything like that. And
what's in my head?
Yeah. And these were all just studies that I've been doing as well. So do with it what you will. Like it's do you know what I mean? These is kind of it's my experience. You know, my experience is what I'm studying. It's what I'm kind of following and believing in. So I never want to feel like I'm like, you know, this is it. This is the ultimate kind of and yeah, you can take up from any kind of angle, so you don't have to like, you can practice any kind of aspect of it. You can practice a little, you can practice a lot. It's up to you.
Yeah.
There's no end all be all right or wrong, but like there's just different levels and layers, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%.
So just to get that boys, I don't know, just so like people don't think that it's all about this, like, you know. So
definitely.
That's the great thing about yoga. It can be anything you make of it.
Yeah.
It can be a full lifestyle. It can be, like, you know, a 5-minute practice. It can be an hour practice. It can be whatever. It can be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
There's no good or bad, you know. There's just do what we can. And
it just is. Yeah. No, that's great. And I definitely will be having you on again, because I feel like there's definitely a lot more that we can cover, and there's a lot more that I want to cover. So why not record it? And I definitely want to do one or a couple of guided meditation episodes, because I feel like every now and then an escapism type of episode is great anyway. So the last episode I put up was me reading a story, not the kind of best escapism if you're panicking or whatever, because it's a story about people killing people in a mental asylum, but it's the escapism episodes are good, so I could definitely incorporate the meditation.
Yeah, 100%. More than happy to do it as well.
We can do that. But yeah, again, for anyone watching, thanks for checking in as usual. If you stayed till the end, fair play to you. I'll send you a $5 on Revolut if you message me for it. But no, nice one. I will be doing that short story competition as well, so keep an eye out, because I've got another story written there, Astral. I'm gonna do it next week. I'm gonna read it out, because I was originally gonna make a novel made up of short stories, and then I realised that my first short story, which I brought out last week, is at 10,000 words now, but I realised I want to just turn that into a longer story rather than bring out the short. Yeah, because I have a different alternate ending. That the ending is huge on last week's one. It's if you listen to it and you can see it coming, fair play to you, because I think
it's a twist. I love a twist now.
Yeah, I think I played that one quite well. I don't think anyone saw it coming. If you did, fair play. But I'm changing that ending and making it longer. So I was going to keep Astral to myself for when I brought out the novel of short stories, but considering I'm making that into a longer one, I'm going to bring out Astral next week, another bit of escapism for you. And then and anyone who, again, I say it every week, anyone who wants to pop on, drop me a text. We're doing nothing else. It's COVID. Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, this is recorded before the COVID restrictions. We're not breaking any laws here. But this is actually, he's a hologram. This is how good I am at editing.
Beside us, and
it's grand. Yeah. This is a load of it's all mirrors. It's all, you won't understand it. It's all meditation. No, but that's grand. Thanks again for coming on, Jamie.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, 100%.
And thanks for listening. And this is a Nostradamus book for anyone who thinks we just had it there to make us look smarter. But yeah, good luck. Mind yourself, and eat your vegetables.